And I get a penny.
Okay, well, let's get rolling. It is 6 p.m. on the nose. And as this isn't wholly my show at this point, I think I will pass it over to our town administrator.
Thank you. Anybody else have the feeling like you just left this room from doing this a year ago?
Yeah.
Or less than a year ago? Welcome back. Excuse me. Bear with me if I, hopefully after 2 hours talking tonight, I'll lose my voice and won't have to talk again the rest of the week. We have a couple of full nights scheduled tonight and Thursday night for the first review of the draft fiscal year 21 budget. Everybody has a copy, I hope, I think. Ways to go, obviously, but we'll start somewhere. So this is the first meeting to review with department heads and committee chairs, and a whole lot of me talking tonight, unfortunately. Got a couple of highlights, lowlights that I'd like to touch base with everybody on before we get going. Budget's very similar in terms of format to previous years, so if there's something you don't understand this year, you didn't understand it last year, glad to help. If I get rambling and you want to ask a question, just interrupt, because we'll roll with it. This year's budget is proposed to be up substantially to the tune of $163,318 more than last year. The vast majority of that is for capital improvement program. Is up, not just two, but up. Proposed $105,500. Despite all that up and up I just talked about, where the budget is proposing a slight decrease to the property taxpayers. We have been fortunate to experience an uptick in our non-property tax dollar revenue. We also have some, what I would refer to as one-time money that we'll talk about a little later tonight, in terms of revenue sharing that the auditors have been after us for a few years to do something with it. As well as last year, the legislature and the governor started to reverse the trend to fulfill their promise regarding revenue sharing. It's supposed to be 5% of sales and income tax and something else that's returned to the towns. That got down to 2% with past legislatures and governors. This year we're in now, it's 2.5%. For this coming year, it should be at 3% of those revenues to the state, and if they're true to their word, that'll continue back up to where it needs to be in a period of time. But we'll take turn in revenues anytime there's non-property tax dollars. The budget as proposed is well beneath the LD1 tax cap levy limit. Probably some of you have heard me say this before. In the past, I thought that when that was first enacted, I thought it was pretty draconian. I'm a believer that people ought to be able to do what they want with their own money and not have some artificial limit. For the last, I don't know, at least 5 years, maybe more, the way that formula is driven, we're well beneath that, and we should be well beneath that well into the future. It's almost to the point now where it's hardly worth calculating for us, but we do. The budget has no staffing changes proposed in it. We're not looking to reduce staff or increase staffing levels. And wages, which is always of interest to people. The budget includes a 1.6% increase to the pay scale for the 4 employees that are on that. We also have 1 employee that is eligible for a step increase this year. That's included in the budget. We'll get into that a little bit. And the Board of Selectmen conducted a performance evaluation of the town administrator and are recommending a change there, which we'll talk about shortly in administration as well. With that, I'm not going to talk anything about the budget message. We do have tried to this year line it up so we're semi-going in order with the budget as we go through. You do have inside your packet, inside your notebook, on the inside flap, should be a schedule that looks like that. That will be the order we'll follow. We've estimated the times for the benefit of the people coming. Again, it's roughly in order, except at the end of tonight, we'll jump to capital improvement, debt service and revenues, which is with the end of the budget, just so we can balance out who's coming when. With that, I think everybody, Jordan, were you here last year? No. Oh, good. Well, then I'll take a minute to talk about the budget format explanation, which is on page 3. You'll note, once again, when the first couple pages don't have numbers on them for the people that are wondering where the page numbers are. The budget that you'll receive should always have in the lower left-hand corner a date that will tell you the version of the budget. Everybody hopefully tonight is working off the draft of February 10, 2020. If you're not, speak up because it's going to be awfully hard to follow along. So looking just quickly at page 3, it just gives you a typical layout of how our budgets are formatted. All the pages except for the summary page at the end are set up in this exact format, where you'll have the working from top down and left to right. What the budget is. In this example, it's for the transfer station, the account, which said Midco Solid Waste Corporation, and then working from left to right, you'll have what we actually spent in fiscal year 19, what the budget, I could see that I didn't update this, but what was actually spent, fiscal year 19, the budget for the current year that we're in, so what was approved last year at town meeting for expenditure, what we expense through the half year. I will note that the easy tendency for people is to say, well, you spent that half year, so you just double it and call it good. That works for some accounts, and for most of them they don't. Some we're front-loaded and spend more in the first half of the year than we do in the second half. Some we spend more in the second half, and so that you've got to be careful about just trying to double it and say, there, that's how much you need or how much you're going to expend for the full year. The percent expended through the half year, the request for the coming year, the percent change in the request for the coming year versus the previous year. Then you'll see a blank under Selectmen's recommendation after the next couple of nights of presentation. The Board of Selectmen, once they've heard the whole picture, will digest and deliberate in the upcoming meetings, which obviously public is welcome to attend. And then ultimately, probably the first meeting in March, the Selectmen will make their recommendations. We'll fill in that column. That will also have the next column over, which will have a percent change of what they're recommending versus what was approved for the current year's budget. And then that budget will come back to the Budget Committee. Budget Committee can go through it again to your heart's content. Hopefully by the end of April or very early in May, you folks on the budget committee will make your recommendations. We'll then fill in that column. And then that will be incorporated, those recommendations, both the selectmen's and the budget committee's recommendations will then be incorporated into the town meeting warrant, which will go to town meeting vote in June. And then once town meeting decides how much money is available for these programs and services, we'll fill in the last column, which is town meeting approved. So that was about as quick and dirty an explanation as I could possibly give. It'll make more sense as we work our way through it. Before we jump into some of the details about administration and finance, which is the first budget that we're gonna look at, does anybody have any preliminary questions?
Yes. So the tax right now is below the ceiling.
Yep.
So how much, I was just wondering about how much below.
I don't have that number out here, but I'll have it for you on Thursday.
If I can remember.
I'll write
Also,
it down, LD beneath. Yeah, and even with the property tax levy limit cap, the law does allow that if town meeting wants to, they can vote to exceed it or increase it, and it just requires an acknowledgement of town meeting and then an actual vote to do that. So it's not like we're hamstringing ourselves by the law, but the law just makes you as residents aware that you're doing it. So it's another option. Others before we delve into, okay. So administration and finance is on page 4. That is the vast majority of the town office staff and people, and what we do. So we have 4 full-time positions. Oh, I ought to take a moment here for Jordan's benefit and anybody else that doesn't remember. The top half of this page is kind of a summary, and then the bottom half and then on to the next page gives a little more detail about the requests and an explanation for those. So we'll go through this one and hopefully it'll all make a whole lot of sense to everybody. Administration and finance, we have 5 positions within what's referred to as administration and finance, 4 full-time positions and 1 part-time position. Those are listed about midway down the page where it says wages. This is the town administrator, finance director, and 3 administrative assistants, 2 full-time and 1 part-time. It shows their wage for FY20, where they are on the pay scale. The administrator is not on a pay scale, but the others positions are. It shows the so the 20 step on the scale, the 20 wage, the FY21 step, and the FY21 proposed wages. I will note for everybody that the Board of Selectmen asked the Wage and Personnel Policy Board to review both the job descriptions and the wages for the administrative assistants and the finance director position in the past year. The Wage and Personnel did that, made recommendations to the board. The board did adjust the pay scales and added an additional step to the scale. So if you try to take what's listed here for FY20 and go back and look at last year's, if you still have last year's budgets, you're gonna say, why does this number not match up? Why do some of them match up and some of them not? Because some were adjusted and some were not. It's a simple answer. So, just so you know.
David, is that a separate committee of wage and personnel as opposed to, are there any members of the select board on that?
No, yes, no. It is a committee that is appointed by the Board of Selectmen. No selectmen serve on that committee. There is two of the members of the Wage and Personnel Committee, Wage and Personnel Policy Board, are former selectmen. One hasn't been a selectman since I've been here, so she hasn't been on the Board of Selectmen for at least 17 years. And one other probably been off for 6, 8, 10 years.
Thank you.
You're welcome. You'll note also in the wage explanation, there is a column down at the bottom that says BOS. There's only one number plugged in there, and that's what the selectmen have assigned to the town administrator's position. They have not reviewed the finance director or administrative assistant positions, nor the 1.6% increase that's proposed for those. You will note, I did talk at the introduction that one employee would be eligible for a step, and that's the finance director. So if you happen to do a percentage, you won't come out with 1.6% for that. Moving down the list, FICA and Medicare is a straight calculation based on 7.65% of the applicable wages. And I will also note for you there, if you take 7.65% of the wages from up above, you won't end up with that number, because one of the other lines here is medical and dental insurance. We have one employee that takes a buyout of that at a lower cost to the town, but that's a taxable benefit. So the taxable benefit also has FICA and Medicare paid from that, so just so you know. Continuing down the page, not seeing any questions. Retirement ICMA, the town offers full-time employees a 6.5% match, or up to 6.5% match of their wages for a retirement plan. I believe everyone takes advantage of that plan, and Kayla's gonna shake her head up and down and say, yeah. Medical and dental insurance, the town pays offers, again, the employees, full-time employees, medical and dental insurance. The percentage of what an employee pays depends on when they were hired and or contract. Been a number of years where some longtime employees are offered 100% coverage, and the newer employees pay 15% of the cost of that, of the coverage selected. Continuing down this,
Quick question.
yes.
Is there, not being familiar with the, I guess, the state or the town retirement program, are retirees from the town, do they receive benefits at post-retirement?
No, this is strictly a, oh, no.
401A.
Yeah, it's what you contribute and town match. You can actually contribute more than the town will match up to a certain level.
Right, but you're not like
No,
you're a public servant, but you don't have, like, for example, some police department.
No.
A pension
Yeah,
for
Yeah.
bear.
No.
Like health benefits or.
no, when you walk out the door, provided you're vested, you get your this and your thank you for your years of service, and
Thank
you're welcome. Let's see, I will note that, so we're talking wages, increase in the request of 3.4%, same for insurance, same for 3.5 for retirement, 2.7 for medical and dental. Advertising, most of these in this account are proposed it to stay the same, but advertising, we never know how many people are gonna, what we're gonna advertise for, but if we need to advertise, any advertising costs, planning board or employee hiring or public notices, that all comes out of this account. Audit, we are required by statute to have an independent auditor come and review the books on an annual basis. We budgeted for a $500 increase. We do not know what that cost will be at the moment.
Do you put that out for bid?
Periodically,
Because you've been increasing a lot the last.
we have.
cycle.
Periodically, we do. We've had Bill Brewer do this for a number of years. One of the challenges we had back in the day was the school had one auditor and we had one, and I don't know why auditors can't talk to one another, but they don't all talk the same language, I guess. And then we, at the same time the school did a search for auditor and switched to, we both now have the same, so when they're here, they can bounce back and forth to central office or over to the school if they need any of that type of stuff. We have not, it's been quite a while since we've had a different.
Isn't it healthy though, from an audit perspective, to change the auditors every now and then?
I think it is, because different people look for different things in different ways.
So is that, the board of selectmen might be considering?
Not this current year. It's
think-
been 10 years?
That's a long time.
I don't know, it has been quite a while. I think that would be, if we were to pursue that, we'd want to make sure that we were pursuing it simultaneously with the school. Because they're gonna have an audit expense as well. Liens and discharges. Excuse me. Unfortunately, some people do fall in arrears with property taxes. And when they do, in order to preserve the town's interest in getting paid, we're able to file a lien on their property. We have to pay to record that lien in the Waldo County Registry of Deeds. Fortunately, most people pay their taxes sooner or later, and then we have to discharge those liens, and we have to record a discharge in the Registry of Deeds. When we do that, when we go to discharge those liens, we do recoup the costs. They don't come back into administration and finance, they come back as a separate revenue to us. So there is a little bit offsetting. If we spend it, eventually we get it back. Postage, most of these things probably ought to be pretty self-explanatory. We have postage for tax bills, the tax bill reminder. Hopefully you've all, if you're a property owner, receive a little postcard in the mail, gently reminding you that second half property taxes are due. We send those out. We're required by town charter to send out second half reminders, so we do. And then we have postage for all other correspondence. Professional development, pretty straightforward. We offer employees to attend workshops and trainings. There are often costs associated with those. Budgeted, what, 45? Boy, the print's small on this. When I was younger, this was a whole lot easier to read. $1,300. Town memberships, which is, the explanation is on the second, page 5, the next page. Town belongs to the Maine Municipal Association, the Mid-Coast Regional Planning Commission, the ICMA Retirement Corp., the Mid-Coast Economic Development District, and then we have memberships for ICMA Manager, Town and City Management Association, Tax Collectors and Treasurers. So far, I'm getting away pretty easy on these questions. So, printing, ballots, town reports, tax bills. Although the explanation says checks, I will say our finance director is very skilled at getting free checks from our bank. So we have paid for checks in the past, we do now, and other forms that we might have here at the town office. Publications is for print media or electronic subscriptions. Excuse me. Tax maps, updates. We annually, people sell property, sell park property. Our assessor draws that on paper copies. We send them to the tax map company who updates them electronically, and then we have them posted on our website. But that's if people would stop, chunking off pieces of land, we wouldn't have to do any updates, but.
I have a question.
Yes.
On the Maine Municipal Association.
Yep.
We were looking into that once, because there's some solar farm or some kind of solar thing they're involved with, and the town could benefit. I don't know if it was grants or what. But we understood that we were not a member, but apparently we are, so I'm just confused.
We, the town of Lincolnville is certainly a member of the Maine
We are.
Municipal
Yeah,
Association.
we're members in
Yeah.
the town, yeah,
Okay,
but not necessarily every.
Yeah, I mean, a citizen,
yeah,
a
right.
citizen can't pick up the phone and get you can get to Maine Municipal, but if you said, hi, this is, John Williams, resident of True Road in Lincolnville, can I speak to somebody in legal services? They're gonna be like, no.
Right.
Or somewhere in the food chain, they'll be like, no. But if Dave Kinney calls up and says, hey, it's Dave Kinney, town administrator, town of Lincolnville, and can I speak to somebody in legal services? They're gonna patch me through to legal services.
Yeah.
So use that line, John, when you call.
Yeah. Yeah. There you go, you can try that. But we're definitely a member, and it's more than legal services, because we're gonna talk about later tonight or tomorrow, we're gonna talk about Thursday, we'll talk about the fact that we have the town attorney as well as legal services. They have personnel services, they've got a slew of people up there,
So
resources.
we're full members.
We are full
Mhm.
We
members,
get full benefit, whatever that is, okay.
we do.
Full services, okay. All right.
And legislative, advocacy that they do for all the towns that are members. And updates on laws and that type of information that comes back to assist us in doing our job.
Yeah, they actively update us with any legislative changes and things that are going on elsewhere in the state.
Okay.
Yeah.
3 emails a day.
A lot.
It's a lot, it is.
Interesting stuff.
Yeah.
Anyhow, computer purchases. Once again, we have 10 computer workstations. We replace 2 of them a year, so we keep basically a computer for 5 years, and we rotate them in and out. That includes the purchasing and the installation and the setup. You'll note the next line down, hardware purchases is proposed for a substantial change in the coming year. We're looking to upgrade and enhance our firewall or our security. And we've just recently done a conversion of our municipal software package. The database that used to run was Microsoft Access. Access is, if it isn't gone, it's going away rapidly. They've converted to SQL, and welcome, Pete. And that is, we need to do something to our backup to fully support the SQL program. So we've made that conversion. So far, so good.
So, David, on the
Yep.
Uninterrupted power supply,
Yep.
quote unquote, battery backup, is that one unit for each computer, or is that a standalone unit that runs them all simultaneously?
Now, we have, each workstation has a battery backup.
Yep. Okay.
And then, obviously, this building has a generator, but,
Okay.
yeah. Well, if I jumped ahead to hardware maintenance instead of hardware purchases, too, by the way. Yeah, go ahead.
How long will those battery backups run the computers?
They give you a warning, and it depends on the strength of the battery, but it gives you a visual on the screen and then a audible alarm, and usually it tells you, you know, you've got 2 minutes left or 20 minutes.
Okay.
It's not an extended period of time. I think it's,
Generally enough to shut down whatever you're doing.
Mine's
and
5
save it
minutes.
safely, yeah.
I was gonna say, I might have seen like 15 or 20 minutes on there, but fortunately, typically our generator kicks
Is it a
on
generator kicking?
Mhm.
almost instantaneously once it senses that power's been out.
Question,
Yeah.
just, with the firewall, that can
Yeah.
help with the ransom stuff that's going on everywhere?
Let's hope we don't experience it, or maybe what we've had has been successful. We also periodically have a nice conversation in the office about, hey, did you see what that town up the road did when they clicked on that email that came in and the link that looked like it was real? Because that's how the
Yeah.
vast majority of that stuff is getting in. I will confess in this chair that I am not a computer guru by any stretch of the imagination, and really, we rely a fair amount on our outside IT person to recommend what we ought to be doing, and then I include the money in the budget, and hopefully I can convince people that that's an appropriate use of tax dollars.
Do we have backup? Does that service, does it give backup of our hard drives?
Yeah, we do a daily backup,
Oh, yeah.
and we have a rotating system of the backup, so that we're not just overwriting on the same thing every day. It's,
And that's all in-house?
yes,
Okay.
yeah, we don't do any, cloud or any backup that way. I will say that our IT consultant is very cautious and very conservative in terms of computer security, and probably rightfully so, because I think he's seen elsewhere where things have gone kablooey.
So you have your own server in-house?
We do.
How big is it,
I know that's not what you meant. That's why I fessed up and said I could.
That was what he meant.
Yeah, I'm sure
What's
it
the
was.
capacity of the server?
Adequate.
Okay.
But if the building were to burn, the backups are housed here,
Correct.
so.
Just
Well,
asking. Oh.
Good question.
In theory, at one point, the backups were making their way into the fire-resistant vault. But in actuality, I'm not sure is that's done every day like it should be.
We have a great fire department.
Well, yes, we do.
Save the boxes.
You see me running, kicking, and screaming.
It doesn't go away.
Yeah. Good point.
And
Should
they
that be-
recommend, do they recommend a cloud backup, or?
No.
Really?
Or take the backup discs to an off-site location, safety deposit box at a bank, perhaps.
Where are you based?
Or the fire-resistant vault.
Or the already existing space that is allocated for such things.
This is like confessional in here.
I know David's like, shit.
This is more like an interrogation.
That's all right. No, every thought and suggestion is valued. Whether or not we do something with it is another question, but that's why we have committees and boards, so we can all pull on the rope. Seeing that the EMA director is here, I better talk faster. Computer purchases, where were we? Hardware purchases. So, computer support, again, we use outside support for IT. Software licensing, we have an annual license fee that we pay to operate our Trio system, which does everything from dog licenses to auto registration to assessing to motor vehicles to taxes.
Budget?
It does have a budget component. This is not, the budget you have is not in there, but once it's done, it gets inputted into that, and then it does accounts payable and payroll. Well, Kayla does on that, accounts payable and payroll and all that stuff. So pretty much everything we do short of email is utilized in that. Hardware maintenance is what I jumped ahead to when I was talking about hardware purchases, but that's hardware maintenance, about the firewall and the full and backup. Software is our antivirus. We have go to my PC so we can access some of this remotely. And now we're getting in over my head, but we have something, a SSL, Secure Sockets Layer. Does that mean something to somebody? Renewal certificate for our encryption. And we're looking to upgrade to Windows 10. That means something to me.
I'm surprised that hasn't been done yet.
Yeah, well, we've been doing it with the new purchases, but we got to do it to some of the old to be up to the new.
Aren't we on Windows like 15 now or something?
Well, I just remember like, I think 5 years ago, I had to do it to my computers to
Yeah.
make it compatible with anything.
The other thing we found we have to be cautious of is not getting ahead of our friends up in Augusta, because like our central voter registration connects to their system, and if we have system that doesn't speak to theirs, it doesn't work. It's terrible. But anyhow, records maintenance, we have a preservation program where some records we're required to keep forever, and we preserve those. We have the tax commitment books from 1800s downstairs in the vault. And we also have clerk's books that we keep in perpetuity. So we send some of those out. Commitment book gets bound. Clerk's books have some sort of preservation treatment done to them, so people in the future can look back and find out all these things. Copier lease, we lease the copier here in the town office. Copier overage, we get so many copies with the lease, and then when we go over, we get charged so much, so we budget some for overage, we go over every year. Supplies, just that, just general office supplies, from these notebooks that you have in front of you, to the paper, to pens, pencils, you name it. Travel, we reimburse employees for their personal use, for the business use of their personal vehicle. We do that at the IRS rate, bank runs, whatever. And cellular telephone is this fine toy right here.
Nope.
Lately's anticipating my suggestion of turning it off, throwing it away, going back to the old way, sorry. It did include a little bit of additional money in there, because woohoo, at the end of this year, if Verizon's true to its word, this phone is not gonna be any good anymore, because it's, once again, over my head on some CDMA network, which they're not going to use and support. So I'm hoping may end up with a free phone, maybe with a different carrier, with a different plan, but you could save all sorts of money, just cut that right out.
There's just, T-Mobile just got into, if there's a new giant, and I guess AT&T and T-Mobile just.
But did they merge?
Anyhow,
I think they just approved the merger. I
questions
just
on
heard on the news that they're
administration
gonna,
and
they're saying, well, it might be one of those mergers that's actually good for, for once, because it creates a third big.
I don't have that for you for
Well, and they
Thursday.
had
I
been-
don't know the
They had
answer
all
to
these
that.
free plans that they were like getting,
With your
so.
overage, you must have some
T-Mobile
each year.
plan for the
Mhm.
town.
Negotiate that into your regular lease payment in that town.
We can.
Well, it's pennies, but they,
They do. The goal of the expectation that the last time was to make sure that we weren't paying them for something we weren't going to use. You know what I mean?
right.
So if we're generating 10,000 copies and I don't have any idea what it is, and we don't want to buy buy $15,000 worth of copies.
You should probably have a track record of what you typically do.
Oh, yeah, well, we get a bill, so we do know. Any other administration and finance questions?
David, I had one, so under record preservation,
Hmm?
what's the anticipated expenditure out of that prior to this fiscal year?
We're going to, if we haven't already, we're going to send a book out to be preserved.
Yep.
And I'm gonna, what did we spend last year on that? Or did we send two last year?
Each book that we have costs a different amount. We have a schedule. There's one that's $1,600 or $1,700, which is one of the reasons that it's increased this year, is because the book that we want to send out is more
Okay,
than the rest of them.
great, thank you.
They're lining up.
Yeah, but Heidi's not here.
Who's not here? Heidi's not
Heidi.
here? Oh, well. Any more administration finance questions? Although the next one that we're supposed to do is animal control, we're gonna skip over animal control because the animal control officer isn't here. Woo-hoo. And because the fire chief is, and the deputy chief. You got an officer title?
I gave it up.
Oh, good for you.
It was smart.
We're gonna skip over parking enforcement too and ask the chief to come up and the deputy chief, or assistant chief. Did you just give him one of these?
I didn't get it open. It's floundering with it.
Sorry, here. So I can pick it up. So for those of you that don't know, this is Chief Fullington.
Hi, Don Fullington,
Yeah, last year,
fire
right?
chief. I was here last year.
Recently re-elected as the fire chief.
Again.
Punishment for another year, and assistant chief or deputy chief, what's his name?
Deputy, technically, I guess.
Deputy Chief Weed is also here.
Yes.
With that, fire department's on page 8, so I'm gonna make a note to go back to animal control and parking enforcement. I'm gonna talk just a little bit, and then the chief is gonna jump right in and take it from there. Officer stipends, wages, FICA, and Medicare is the part I'm gonna talk about. You will see that we're proposing for the stipend positions as well as the regular full-time positions that we talked about earlier, a 1.6% increase in those. Those are broken out in the detail at the bottom. I would say that there is no one on the fire department that is getting rich on this, and they don't do it for the, the $20 increase that we might be giving them this year. But in trying to keep this, a couple of years ago, the Wage and Personnel Policy Board reviewed the stipend positions and that compensation offered and made some suggestions for changes, which was implemented by the selectmen and the town ultimately. And in trying to keep that in concert with what's going on in the world, if there's an inflationary factor for an administrative assistant, there probably is for the fire department as well. In terms of firefighter wages, you'll see that that has not been proposed to change. We're gonna change the wage, but the amount necessary to fund that change hasn't increased the overall budget. We do not know how many calls the firefighters are going to experience in the coming year, nor do we know how many will actually show up when the call goes out. So it's a true estimate of,
It's a guesstimate.
yeah, use that we don't really know what we're gonna get. We have looked back, it's been a couple of years, but a couple of years ago, we did look back at the average hours for the previous 5 years or something, still in line roughly with that, so. With that, there are some items, as you'll see as we work down the page, that are substantially different, but I'm going to turn it over to the chief and support him all I can.
So I looked over the budget and some past budgets from 2018, 2017, 2016, and I reduced some of the small ticket items that we consistently are not using all of. I did increase the truck maintenance because when we receive our new truck next year, we are not going to get rid of that, the truck it's replacing for at least probably a year to 2 years, until we can save up enough money to purchase a small utility truck. We will be getting rid of our access truck, so we will go down one vehicle, but the access truck is pretty minimal on how much we spend yearly on maintenance. And I looked at our SCBA bottles. We have 55 total breathing air bottles that we use on our packs that are in the fire station. 22 of those are heavy steel bottles and 33 are carbon fiber bottles. A lot of the guys have voiced that they'd really love to get rid of the heavy bottles. Carbon fiber bottle weighs roughly 10.5 pounds and a steel bottle weighs 21 pounds. So I think it's beneficial for us to start trying to deplete the steel bottles, because when you're tired, an extra 10 pounds on your back and on your shoulders can be quite effective on your performance. And those bottles are roughly $800 a piece. So right now we replace 5 a year. So I'm looking to implement replacing 10 a year until at least all the bottles that are on the trucks are replaced. And as well as all the spare bottles that are on the trucks that are replaced. Any questions on that?
What's the lifespan of a bottle?
15 years. They go out to get hydroed every 5, and then they are disposable at 15 years. So hopefully, you know, we can do the extra 5 a year until we get them replaced. Figure out how many we have at that point, and then figure out how they're expiring and try to appropriately replace them, so we don't end up having to ask for a whole lot more money when it all happens at once. Any other questions on bottles?
I have a question about the second suit for all members.
Yes. So a big thing in the fire industry now is cancer. They're doing tons of testing, and a lot of full-time firefighters and volunteer firefighters are contracting cancer from carcinogenic fumes and smoke. We just replaced all of our turnout gear this year. Luckily, we have the Lincolnville Community Foundation that donated the money to replace all of it. And we bought higher end gear per se that actually has elastic cuffs on your wrists, your waists, and your ankles, with a special particulate blocking filter fabric, basically. You know, I think it's worth it. The guys are, you know, taking time out of their days and their lives to help us out. We can, you know, give them the best of the best to keep them safe for their future. But all in the same, when we go to a structure fire, all that gear is contaminated. So we're trying to get all the guys to bring that gear to the laundromat to have it professionally cleaned. But in the meantime, we're using our old, outdated, non-compliant turnout gear. And this kind of came to mind when the unfortunate incident in Farmington happened. Is, you know, there were a lot of expired tools and things and gear that they were using, and I'd hate to end up on the bad end of that if something did happen. You know, God forbid we had a second fire and someone got hurt and they had 10-year-old expired turnout gear that they were wearing. So that extra gear would be so that hopefully in the next 3 to 4 years, all of the SCBA interior certified guys would have 2 sets of compliant gear, so that they're never without compliant gear.
Okay.
What, cancers? Just none or everything?
I don't know what kind of cancers. It seems to be actually various. Yeah. I've spoken to a couple of full-time fire chiefs who've done a lot more research than me, And they're finding that there are different kinds of cancers, and they're actually finding that there's groups of guys that were at a certain structure fire, and all of them have got the same exact cancer.
Well, I mean, plus I think regardless, they should be having the best equipment, but especially because they're receiving essentially no compensation whatsoever to do this. I feel like the least that we can do is give them the best we can. Plus, I was thinking about, you were talking about the trouble that the turnover from cleaning the suits, they had to
Yes.
take them somewhere else. Is there any way that we could give, some kind of equipment or cleaning equipment that we could have in the fire station that would help sure that
You
turnover,
could.
so that you didn't have to wait for it, and that way you guys could have some, you know what I mean?
Yeah, you could, and we actually have like a washer and dryer
Yeah.
set up there, but the problem is in order to get it all done, I mean, if you have 15 guys show up,
Yeah,
you've got
and they're
15
huge
sets
suits,
of
yeah.
big suits. It would be delayed. Two, you get somebody that puts it in to wash it and goes to work and forgets about it, and then somebody else comes and it's like, just
Yeah.
a communal washer and dryer in college or whatever, you're always throwing someone else's stuff on the
Yeah.
ground. And I mean, and I'd feel better having them professionally clean.
Yeah.
I assume you have policies set up to decontaminate yourself, to shower after a call, or massage their ear, their own personal hygiene. And you don't wanna bring that stuff home to your family
Right.
as well.
Yeah, no, I mean, if they decide to, there's showers in the fire department, and also we've put, special fire cleaning wipes in all the trucks. So if you do, you get done on scene, your hands are covered, your face has got something on it from cleaning up, you can actually decontaminate your face and hands. Any other questions?
Hey, just a quick question on building and property maintenance, $6,000, and just all it says is routine building maintenance. Is there a breakdown of that, or do you have an idea of what that is?
Say Kayla.
Hold on, I got
You,
it here.
and, so there was, fiscal year 2020, there was $6,000, and now 2021, there's $6,000. I'm just kinda wondering,
We
it's
haven't.
a little vague, that's all.
Yeah, and we haven't used it. I actually have another intention for some of that is hiring someone to clean up around the fire station, like sand and stuff in the spring.
Mhm.
Spend a little bit of money on that, and possibly having someone maybe clean the fire department once a month.
Absolutely.
As well as maybe having an exterminating service spray around all the lights and windows, because it seems like you have to clean the place 6 times a year of spiders and spider droppings and stuff like that.
Okay.
So go ahead, Kayla.
Yeah, some of the things we've done is, the furnace cleanings, especially down at the beach, that furnace is considerably
Yep.
old at this
Yep.
point. The sprinkler contract, we did the generator needed a battery. We had all of the doors at the fire station lubricated and
Serviced, yeah, the garage
serviced,
doors are serviced.
so that they open when they go to open them.
Overhead door maintenance.
Yeah. And, they've purchased some keys this year, and we have to have the fire extinguishers looked at every year, so.
Yeah, and I think, does it cover, I think our air compressor is in there as well, I think, for the servicing of that, for filling all the air balls.
Question, about how much is spent, do you happen to know how much is spent on cleaning the furnace at the beach firehouse? What I'm getting at is where the solar panels at the firehouse are making a little extra electricity. And we're looking for an opportunity, to put a heat pump in someplace, and how does that match?
It was $190 to clean the
Oh.
beach
Okay,
this year, yeah.
all right.
10 years you can give me a pump. 10 years you can give me a pump.
At some point, though, we were the generous recipients of a gift of land, or the gift of money to buy a piece of land for the replacement of that beach station. And I can assure you that when that station gets replaced, We will not put the furnaces at the beach station.
There will be very little reused, maybe an air compressor, and that's about it.
Maybe the truck. We'll drive the truck down and put it
Yeah,
out.
maybe the truck, yes.
But certainly new and different. We've had very good experience here with the heat pumps in the town office, no doubt about it. Oh, I'm seeing somebody here, yeah.
What's the status of buying the land, since it was, what, several years ago that it was appropriated to buy that piece? Is that the same piece?
Yeah, the land on the beach road was purchased with the plan of at some point in the future to construct a beach replacement. The land was available and I won't say ideally suited, but the best suited in the right location. Is that a fair statement, firefighter?
Best suited for what was available
Yeah.
in that area.
All right, that's clear, what I thought you
Yeah.
had said, that's why I raised it.
Trying to do a little long-range planning at that point.
Right, I remember. when-
Before it got snapped up and somebody put a house there and then,
Right,
So it was purchased?
yes,
Okay.
most definitely.
yep, and we've been putting funds away for building that beach station. I think that's all I have, unless there's any other questions about anything else. I don't know if anybody noticed on the hose and ladder testing, that's gone up as well. The reason it was low is actually because one of our trucks was out of service when they came to do it. So we weren't able to get the hose on that truck tested.
And the new truck, right?
As well as I figured some extra for hose testing when we get the new truck.
So the truck maintenance, that's separate than the hose and ladder testing.
Correct.
But the truck maintenance, 2019 actual was 11,477. 2020 there was 8,000 budgeted. What's the? And only 784 of the 2019. What? Oh, is that what's left over?
That's
No,
what we
that,
spent.
that's what we spent through half a year.
Through the half
Oh.
a year.
But we haven't,
We're waiting for the bills to come. Kayla
Well,
and AJ have called and asked, and
Are we expecting for truck 3, right? Isn't that, didn't you say that?
There'll be a bill for truck 3, and Greenwood has done all the services on the other truck. They
Okay.
are very behind on their billing, so they
Okay.
have not billed us for any of this year's truck maintenance yet.
Because that was definitely
Tell them it
based on
goes
our
away if they don't
conversation.
get it.
Right.
give them a deadline.
It's not their fault, but if they don't get it to us, it's going away. Okay.
Well, didn't you indicate that you expected us to go over our budget?
I did expect us to go over.
Yeah.
And actually, I sent a message to Kayla today to see how much we've spent on tanker 3 in just the repairs and trying to figure it out. And I believe it was a little over $1,900 at this point.
Okay.
Do you have the truck maintenance, you have it broken down by, I'd be really curious just to see the breakdown
That'll be what it costs
per,
each truck.
per vehicle, yeah.
I don't have it with me because we haven't gotten the bills for this year. I can get last year's
Yeah.
and bring them in.
Yeah, that would be great.
Yeah.
Same thing with the heating fuel for, I mean, I just out of
You
curiosity.
mean which for each location?
The breakdown, yeah.
Yep.
Quick question, you mentioned earlier about the hose testing for the new truck, that's not part of the purchase price?
No,
They don't test their own hose?
no, truck comes empty. Comes with bladders and pipe pulls and that's it.
So then they'll purchase new hoses.
Getting the water out of the truck, you're on your own.
No water with the truck
So
either,
you're
no.
not familiar with how it works, so you'll buy new hoses for the truck, but the new hoses have to be tested as well.
Yeah, well, they'll be all set
For the first.
for the first year when they're brand new.
Okay.
And then after that, they need to be tested once a year.
So that will be in next year's budget.
It will be,
Well, 2 years, right, because we get the truck next year.
we're supposed to see the truck in 5 to 6 months.
Okay.
Whether it comes on time, I don't know. They indicated that they are a little bit behind, but I did not knowing when we're gonna schedule the next hose testing for 2021, I wanted to make sure we added some money in there, so it wasn't a surprise.
Thank you.
Any other questions of these two gentlemen before we send them on their merry way?
Thank you for coming out to my house last summer. And we made
You're very welcome.
like
You're very
smoke
welcome.
in the basement. Never happened again, and I don't know what it was.
You never figured out
Yeah,
what
I
it was.
I opened up boxes and looked for smoke. Anyway, thank you. I appreciate what you
No,
guys do.
they're very welcome.
Yes, thank you for all you do for us.
Yes, you're very welcome.
And hopefully you never come to visit me again.
No, we don't really wanna come visit anybody.
Donnie,
Yes.
just one more question.
Sure.
Emergency reporting, and tracking it. I think it's
Yes.
been, what, a couple of years, maybe even more than that we've seen, upgrades on computer equipment and things of that nature down there. Maybe I'm completely wrong here, somebody can correct me if I'm wrong, but
We did, I think we replaced the computer 2 years.
two years ago, and did that hit the budget, or did you do that out of, pocket change, so to speak?
No, I think that hit the budget, I'm not
I'm pretty
sure,
sure.
cause I think
Okay,
that's when
all right.
Steve.
I just don't
was
remember
chief.
it.
I wasn't.
And we're all good with that? I mean,
It seems to be working fine, I mean, we
Yeah.
don't, it's not like they do a whole lot other than the reporting and writing up paperwork and stuff like
okay.
that.
Alright.
I think we're good on that.
Alright.
The only thing, not having the bills for the truck maintenance kind of leaves me up in the air with kind of a guesstimate on, cause we have gone over in the past years with
That's certainly,
unexpected repairs, like exhaust and brakes, stuff
certainly
like that.
understandable.
So hopefully the small increase will cover us. I mean, the brand new truck shouldn't actually need to have any servicing for the first year anyway.
Oh, it's still covered under warranty at that point, right?
Yes, it is, yes. It's under warranty for 3 years, I think. The truck is under warranty for 3 years and the chassis for 5 years.
One other quick question would be, I know it's a very minuscule increase to the officers, but I'll say the general firefighters, there is no increase. Is there gonna be any pushback from that? Do you happen to guys get a raise within?
Oh, they are gonna get it.
Well, it's just for the
Increase.
minimum wage, right?
Yeah.
It's basically, we're just keeping up with minimum wage, so we're covered under workers' comp.
So, but that's not reflected in the budget though, right? I mean, 0% change, or is it just because the hours that you put in?
Right.
Okay,
Right.
okay.
You'll see it when you look down below in the explanation, you can see the difference.
Yes. I remember seeing that top line, yeah.
Okay, right.
Anything else? We're good?
No.
Thank you, gentlemen.
You're welcome. Thank you very much.
Have a good night.
Thanks.
Quiet.
Yes, hopefully.
Funny it is.
Yeah.
Before we go back, we might as well go forward since the EMA director is here.
Mm-hmm.
I'll wait to see that for you.
And we're gonna turn the page to page 10, under protection other. And Peter Owens is our emergency management director, which is about halfway down the top part. You'll see it says emergency management. It's not a tremendously overwhelming budget. I'll talk about the first half because that's the easy part. Pete can talk about the second half and second, third. First half is we do offer a small stipend to the emergency management director. We're proposing to increase that a whopping 1.6%. And pay FICA and Medicare on that is required by law. And the other issue is supplies, and I don't need to tell, I think everybody can read the fact that we'd like to get some portable signage.
Some road barricades. Currently, we have 2 road barricades. They're at the center station, and they're lightweight, which is great for a construction site. But when we have to close the road, it's because of storms and wind and everything, and they they're gone, they blow away. We have a couple of broken ones that are by the salt shed that we sort of repaired the old wooden ones, which are fine, but they too flimsy, they fall down. So I wanted to buy some road barricades that actually they fill with sand, the uprights, so they'd stay in the road.
Great.
Is 4 enough, Pete?
To start, it's more than we have.
Yeah, yeah.
They're 200 apiece.
That's with shipping, yeah.
Yeah.
It's
How long is each one? Or
6
how-
feet.
6 feet, okay. So would you put one in each lane?
Usually we put them in the,
Middle.
yeah, we put them in the middle with a little bit on the side so that people who live down the road can get around it and go
Okay.
there, and then put one at the other end too.
And you could put just about anything in the road and people drive
They
by.
go around it
move
anyway.
or run it over.
Mm-hmm.
We had an incident on Slab City Road a number of years ago where people were moving the barricades and then driving across something, and when the water receded, all that was there was the pavement. Literally, underneath it was gone. We ended up taking a couple of trucks, with the sand trucks, and putting them in the road and blocking the lanes and locking the doors, and people were mad.
What about cones and things of that nature? Is that,
We have quite a few cones.
so you've got a good supply of
Yeah, we have a
those,
good supply of cones.
or good access to them?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
And you will see when Vernon talks tomorrow night that he'd like to
Yeah.
replenish some of his cone supply, cause
They disappear.
Probably the fire department's got them. That's why they have so many.
I think we have 6 on every truck.
Yeah.
And then a few at the station. But they do disappear. You leave anything you leave in the road, somebody's gonna come by and say, I like that.
It's too bad.
Yeah, quick question, if you didn't have to worry about the budget, how many barriers would you want, would you actually want to do?
I'd say maybe 8 barricades would probably be fine, because we try not to close the road for too long. You know, if we can, as soon as we can open it, we take them, and then usually they end up going to another place. After that, we're, you know, the emergency's moving all over town when we have an incident. So maybe 8, but I think this is a good start.
How about if we go with 6? How about if you ask for 6?
Okay.
I'm
6 would be great.
I'm here to protect the town's money, but you're protecting the town. And I think if we go with 6, I think that's an easy no-brainer.
Because that's only closing 3 roads.
Yeah, we've
both
been having
ways.
crazy windstorms that have been increasing every year, and I know the limbs that overhang the roads aren't getting shorter or trimmed. So, and I commute a distance on 52. It's pretty horrible. So,
It could help from a liability perspective too. So, it's probably, I don't want to be too wide.
When we go through it, you can.
This may seem like a silly question. How much do they weigh roughly when they're filled with sand, and how do you transport them?
I think we could fill them with as much sand as we wanted. I'm guessing, just by looking at them, maybe 50 or 60 pounds of sand you could fit in them.
Okay.
I don't think we put that much. I don't think we need that much, because you want to be able to manage them. But, you know, enough to keep it from blowing away, enough to make it unwieldy enough so that somebody would come and pick it up and take it.
Yeah, okay. But light enough that 2 people could easily.
Oh yeah, oh sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Got off easy.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, my favorite thing to do is go back and start again, so we won't go back and start again. But I am gonna go back to page 6, and I'm gonna look at the board chair to say, do you want me to put on my animal control officer hat and talk about this, because she's not here?
I mean, in the interest of,
Yes? Okay.
Yes.
And if we have some follow-ups, we can,
Yep.
I think I'm capable. So I'm on page 6, protection, animal control. The town is required to have an animal control officer. Animal control officer addresses domestic animals. If you have a wild or domestic animals and assists with potential rabid animals. But if you have a wild animal, it's not the animal control officer whose duties fall to them. We pay the animal control officer a stipend. That's proposed to increase 1.6% along with FICA and Medicare. We do reimburse the animal control officer for part of her cellular phone service and part of her internet service. We contact her by, it's a personal cell phone, we contact her by cell phone if necessary, as does Waldo County Communications when they contact her. That is a taxable expense because she doesn't provide us any documentation to that, so that when you do FICA or Medicare, you'll really have to add up the communication reimbursement and the stipend to do the calculation. Animal shelter, we pay an annual fee to Paws Animal Shelter in Camden for the use of the shelter. Supplies and training, pretty straightforward. Memberships and mileage, we do pay mileage. So,
David, can you remind me how the fee for PAWS is calculated?
they calculated it on, I think they're at $1.25 per person based on the census. Might have been $1.20. Well, I could do the math. Somebody could do the math. Divide 24.45 by 21.64. Maybe they do.
2164.
Yeah. Okay, so they don't use the same population as what I think we are, but I don't know the answer to that question. They ratcheted it up for a couple of years
Right.
to that level, and I would have to go look at the history to come up with that. But
Okay.
it was based on population, if memory serves me correctly.
Their seasonal, is her service more seasonal than others? I'm just looking at the mileage, she doesn't do a lot, she hasn't done a lot of mileage, but we use her a lot.
It's feast or famine, and it's all call dependent. The very first level of service is trying to handle it over the phone, if possible. But if it's a stray, or if it's an animal that's, a cow out in the street or something, she'll come to Lincolnville and drive here. And she won't pick up a cow and take it to Paws, but if it was a dog, she'd pick it up and take it down to Paws or something like that. And it's all over the place. Some months it's nothing, and some months it's one trip, and some months it's 4. There's not a lot of rhyme or reason to it.
If I remember correctly, we did have some taxpayers question that,
Mm-hmm.
and we did look into that, and we came up with, we're getting a very good deal for
Yeah.
what we're paying for. And I think the beef was, or the concern was, that she was working for more than one community. She's not getting rich on this by any means, but she's there when we need her. It's money well spent.
And recently, I've noticed on the bulletin boards, there's been a lot of stray animals, and, disappeared and so forth, and she always seems to be involved with that too.
She does seem to be all
She-
over it.
Yeah.
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 Any questions about animal control? Seeing none, we'll turn one page to page 7 and talk about parking enforcement. We haven't had too much luck in getting parking enforcement, although I will say the parking officer or attendant or whatever the title is doing a very good job right now. But he doesn't get compensated beyond his other compensation. But the hope, dream, and aspiration would be to have people available to us so that the town administrator wasn't appointed parking officer anymore.
So if anyone out there is
Yeah,
interested.
and I think we'll probably attempt to get somebody on board a little earlier this year, before the mad rush and everybody else is hired. It's a anybody that's hiring people know that it's a hard market out there to hire people.
And it's just at the beach, right?
No, primary enforcement opportunities are at the beach. We do certainly have a parking ordinance that applies around town. We've had issues on Fernald's Neck Road down by the Coastal Mountains Preserve, where their parking lot gets filled and then people park alongside the road, and then people say, what if there was a fire? How are you gonna get a fire truck down here? On Breezemere Park occasionally gets summertime heavy use and involvement, and there is a business on Youngtown Road that hasn't been a problem recently, but at times in the past, we've had a lot of cars there. Once again, it's primarily focused on the beach parking lot and Route 1, but there are times when they're needed elsewhere, for sure.
Or a college student would be,
That would be ideal. I would think this would be a great summer job for somebody. Might even be able to find them some other part-time work. You know any college students that are looking for a job?
Do you have to be 18?
I would have to check our job description.
Yeah. The other question I have is,
I don't think you do have to be.
like a senior high school student.
well, yeah,
or-
that's 16.
Yeah. I mean, they'd be
I
eligible.
think an adult major would probably be a good idea, since there's some inherent risk of confrontation, something like that.
There will
Not throw a 17-year-old out there.
inevitably be pushback, yeah.
I have a
Just
question.
a
for-
thought, so just looked at it.
Nodding.
Thank you. Do these people give some type of a ticket if you violate parking where you shouldn't?
Yeah, well, they certainly have the ability to.
Right.
We are all about voluntary compliance, whether it be for parking or for code enforcement issues or plumbing or anything. However, some people on the receiving end of voluntary or requests for voluntary compliance are less than compliant. And it's another tool in the toolbox. The parking enforcement, from personal experience, a lot of the parking at the beach seems to be violated by people that don't want to pay to park in the ferry terminal, which has free parking from from after Columbus Day through, the 1st of May. I don't know what the window is, but something like that. And the minute they start charging for parking, all of a sudden, all the spaces, not all the spaces, but a lot of the places at the beach are full of cars all day long. Those people, in a nice way, when they get the little card on their thing saying, this is a courtesy warning, that you're violating the ordinance, they're usually pretty good after a couple of days of that. And then, somebody gets a ticket or two and the word gets around pretty quickly. And the problem is resolved somehow. They go someplace else. But you do have to periodically follow up with that, or, human nature, they migrate back. But
I've been curious because I've seen cars that I recognize day in and day out, and nothing seems to bother them. They just continue to park there. So I wondered how it was enforced and what was the penalty or consequence for violating the ordinance.
I believe the ordinance, first time offense might be $10, but it might be 25 too. I can't remember. But it goes up for
What's the
subsequent.
fee to park in the parking lot with our?
$10.
10? So if you make it more than that.
Yeah.
you can park there.
That's what I'm thinking, that make it
The challenging part is that they oversell the spots.
Yeah, it's really hard, I've had to run to the island to do construction work, and I'm not advocating anybody breaking the rules, but it can be very difficult when and that's what happens, is that you've got crews of guys who are going over there 5 to 6 at a time, and they don't all ride together, and it is a tough situation.
But then you have the taxpayer who pays good taxes and wants to go to the beach and they can't because, so, it's a no-win situation.
It's a balancing act.
Yeah.
We want people to comply with the rules that are adopted by the people.
We'll spread the word, look for good people who are
I have a couple in mind.
not afraid of conflict.
We don't have a lot of conflict, and I would encourage, We'll train somebody.
They carry a gun?
No.
No. That would be good.
Oh, that'd be fun.
Yeah.
Denver boot.
Okay.
Sorry, we're gonna
We're,
carry
we're,
All right, we
we're
beat that one.
behind.
Woohoo, we're not behind, are we? Now we're gonna flip ahead to page 10, protection other, and I'm gonna talk about the, what remains on this. We already did emergency management. Oh no, we're right on target. Streetlights, we have requested a slight reduction in that streetlights. We have converted the beach sidewalk lights to LED, so we will hopefully experience less electricity use. If we experience more, something's desperately wrong. We're also in the process of working with Central Maine Power to eliminate some streetlights. That has not gone into effect, as you can tell if everybody goes around and looks at the ones we have up there. But, and the other ones that we do have with CMP, we will be converting to LED. That's the plan.
What feedback have you gotten from the new lights down at the beach?
I've mostly been positive in terms of, I think everybody likes the fact that it doesn't necessarily light up the sky. But I have had a comment or two of, it doesn't seem as bright even on the sidewalk.
I can measure that. I did already. They're much brighter. Just subjective, I guess.
Yeah.
Numbers, John, we need numbers.
Probably somewhere else.
How many lumens per square foot
All right.
Numbers.
at a dissipating distance of X for how many feet?
Okay. All right. Insurances, the town is hopefully covered well for insurance. We provide statutory required workers' compensation insurance, unemployment insurance. Risk pool is our building and officials' liability insurance. Unfortunately, this year, we did have an insurance claim at the fire station for water damage, which ratcheted up a little bit, has been repaired. And then we budget for a deductible. We have $1,000 deductible. Current coverage. Legal services, we have outside counsel that provides us legal services on an hourly basis or every 6 minutes or whatever basis. That's another one of those that we do not know how much we're going to use because a lot of that is out of our control, but should we need it, we have it.
Anything in the pipeline? Or that might hit that budget?
No. I say it with great hesitancy. We've had an ongoing land use issue and the person has now been deceased for 3 years and we're still ongoing land use issues.
Yeah.
But there's no major liability cases that
No,
might hit this year, that you're aware of?
I'm unaware of somebody coming in and serving us, but we never know, unfortunately, or fortunately. Emergency management, we talked about when Pete was here. Ambulance service, we have a 2-year agreement with Northeast Mobile Health. We're in the year 1. Year 2 has a CPI based on something, but it's from July to July, so we won't know what the adjustment is. I put 4% in there. You tell me what it's gonna be in July and we'll all be rich because we'll be good
Is
prognosis.
that conservative?
I think that that is adequate.
Okay.
If I didn't think it was adequate, I wouldn't have put it in there. Last year's, well, you can't go year to year. Last year wasn't that. And then Knox Dispatch, although we're in Waldo County, Knox Communication dispatches for both our fire department and Northeast Mobile Health Services. And if we want to continue that, we're going to send them $10,564. Any questions on protection?
I wanna go back to insurances. How frequently do they audit all of our town-owned structures?
We annually file a renewal, and then they have their inspector guru, whatever he is, comes annually, but he doesn't go to every building annually. They go to the sand salt building and the beach fire station this year, and the next year they're at the town office, and
But you never know what building they're gonna pick.
correct.
They did the sand salt in the town office this year, and they increased both of the assessed values for them. for
And we do,
coverage.
yeah, and they do an annual, at least desktop, I don't wanna call it an exercise, a desktop evaluation of all of our, listed property.
Is the school included, the school building included in this?
In this? No,
Okay, even though the town owns the building.
correct, that's
Okay, I'm
budgeted
just-
by the school committee, or better be budgeted by the school committee.
They're responsible for that.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question.
Sure.
So I'm looking down at insurances, the
Yep.
detail, and I can see that the 2021 request adds up to $31,000.
Yep,
And I see that figure in the table above $31,000.
yep,
But then the fiscal year 2020, does that add up to $32,500?
no,
Okay, did you already explain why and I wasn't listening?
no.
Oh.
Uh,
I thought it could be a stupid question, but okay.
I think you're looking in the
This is the expense.
20,
Oh, wait.
The 2020 budget.
Oh, it's not there.
yeah,
Right, okay,
We don't-
never mind.
okay,
Yes.
thank you. Question answered. Did everybody understand the question and the answer? Does anybody need more follow-up on that? All right. Woo!
That's good.
All right.
Move on.
Turn the page to page 11. We're going to talk about town office building. Look at that. We're a minute behind schedule. Town office building is obviously this building, and these are the expenses associated with running the building. We have a part-time custodian. Once again, the part-time custodian would be eligible for a 1.6% increase. We have not increased the budget for that because 1.6%, I believe, is absorbable within that budget request. It's not a fixed number of hours that he works for us. It fluctuates depending on level of dirt and other little things we find here in the office that breaks. Trash removal, we have weekly trash pickup and recyclable pickup here at the town office. Landscaping, we have somebody that comes and mows the grass and picks up leaves and whatever else. Security system, we have a security system here at the town office for intrusion, smoke, fire. We have emergency switches, the counter. Building maintenance, I've proposed an increase in the building maintenance. This building is now past its six-year anniversary since we renovated the building. Yeah, time flies when you're having fun. We are starting, like anything new. It's got a period of time where things seem to go smoothly without too much hiccup. We have started to have some experiences. For example, today, the transition from the old building into the new. Old building on a foundation, new building's on a slab. I would say the slab in the 6 years has settled, probably a quarter of an inch. And really wasn't noticeable until yours truly was, walking around with a cane or crutches and you just notice those things. We had a carpet guy or a flooring person come in today, rolled up the carpet squares, put a shim down, waited till it cured, put the adhesive down, put it back. And there are things like that. We've got a cabinet door issue in the kitchen, and we're now starting to experience that. So we've budgeted a slight increase in that to take care of the new things coming. Electricity, paying electric bill, equipment purchases, or small little minor items that the custodian might need. Heating fuel, the old part of the building does have a propane boiler, as does the backup for this side. We have radiant floor heating on this side. When the heat pumps, if it gets cold enough that needs to have additional heat, we have that available to us. Supplies, anything from trash bags to paper towels to toilet paper to whatever. Telephone, we have 5 phone lines, 1 fax line, and long distance charges. Website, internet is here. Snow removal. And then we have the live streaming and online archive, which we don't have any costs, but we may need to budget some money because this is the next meeting that's not broadcasting Josh. Kayla got a message from her husband saying we're not.
My husband tried watching it, and he's
Oh,
like,
really?
"You guys aren't live."
Yeah.
But
Oh,
we're working through that.
darn.
Nick.
Well, so my daughters can watch me.
So,
Aw.
There's mommy. That's why
Oh,
she's
and
not home.
I gotta back up to snow removal. Our snow removal contract, we have a contract. We're gonna talk about this more on the winter maintenance for roads. It includes, I think it's a 3% change. I have included some additional monies in the budget. We have a sidewalk or a walkway that goes between here and the post office that we did not include. I'm done shoveling in my old age. And we do occasionally hear complaints from people that like to park here, walk to the post office, walk back and get in their car and go. And we do send people over there, so I'm suggesting that we budget a little money to remove the snow from that sidewalk.
That's town property, that's postal property.
Well, it's town property almost all the way to the post. Actually, it's all town property because we lease the land to the postal service. Mary shovels it occasionally, but she burns up too.
so with regards to the security system,
Yes.
with secure record retention in mind, do we have environmental alarms in the storage area, meaning water detection, things of that nature?
No.
I might recommend that we explore adding that to the system
Yeah.
or something like that. I have no idea how much that will cost.
Yep.
I'm sure a simple phone call can give us that number. Do we have any water intrusion in the cellar or anything like that, God forbid?
We have not experienced that. We do have a solid drain in the cellar, and the records that are retained are in the vault, which
Yeah.
doesn't have any water running through it, but I
Yeah.
suppose it could build up enough to get in.
It probably would be money well spent just to have a heads up when we do have something like that happen down there.
We'll look bad if we don't have it and we needed it, but, yep.
And yet another reason why you need to have your cell phone.
Yes, you need your cell phone.
I'm gonna program your number.
Okay, that's the only question that I've got on that. Is there anything else in building maintenance, David, that, other than stuff like that? I mean, I know places probably gonna move a little bit, but,
In building maintenance itself, I
Yeah.
mean, besides what I talked about with
Yeah,
things
yeah.
going, we do the annual servicing of the air handler and the heater unit down there. We have, not only heat, we have air conditioning. Wastewater, if we need to have the septic tank pumped or the well, we have the water filter serviced annually, and the salt for the softener. And fire extinguishers that are come, they do an annual inspection of the fire extinguishers. And then the monthly's done here, so.
Right.
That is, yep. Others, anyone?
Oh, yeah.
Wow, this is a tame crowd. Oh, here we go. Next page will stimulate some conversation. Page 12, contingency. Everyone's favorite. Contingency is just exactly what it says. It's money for the unanticipated expenses that we haven't budgeted for that might come up in the course of the year. We do have the ability, or the Board of Selectmen has the ability to call for a special town meeting, but for some items, to have a special town meeting seems a little, to me, a little crazy. When we could go to town meeting and say, can we have some money? If we don't use it, it'll come back to you or it won't be spent. You can see we haven't exactly gone crazy in the past couple of years. We spent $1,879 a year ago, 547 thus far this year.
Where does that money go to end the budget cycle?
Any monies that are not expended in any of these accounts, with the exception of a capital project, or monies that town meeting specifically votes to carry forward to a coming year, rolls into undesignated fund balance, and in half an hour, we're gonna talk about using some of undesignated fund balance to reduce the property tax commitment.
Would there, well, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Okay, just a quick question on the contingency.
Yep.
The solar panels at the firehouse were a little over voltage, right, and that was tripping off the well pump. Is that all fixed now? Is that a contingent type expense?
It is not fixed now. We know how to fix it, and we're awaiting a price from the electrician to put in the buck boost transformer. I cover my mouth because I'm not 100% sure that that's exactly what it's called. I would anticipate that we will have, we did spend money out of that for him, out of contingent. We, the town, hired an electrical engineer to give us some unbiased opinion as to what was going on and what a solution should be, not only for the problem that we were experiencing, but was the cause of that problem doing damage to anything else in the building, that we might not be breaking it, but might be shortening its life or doing something else. The answer back from that was everything else should be okay, and the recommendation for the well pump was to put on this other unit. We're waiting pricing on that, and I would anticipate we probably will have a conversation with folks from Revision Energy about the expense of that.
Oh, yeah, okay.
But we most definitely spent money on a contingency to hire the electrical engineer. Anyone else on contingency? Oops, so close.
Would anybody have a reason not to reduce the contingency from $10,000 to $6,000? My reason?
Yes.
Okay, go ahead.
Well, first I should have said this at the start. I'm in hopes that, I mean, you can have it in discussion you want at your meeting. I'm in hopes that the board will hear 2 nights worth of requests before they begin too much deliberation, so you get a big picture of the whole thing, and then you can helps formulate your recommendation. For a $2.2 million budget, $10,000 in contingency is pretty small.
It's a pretty reasonable amount.
That's to me,
Yeah.
and,
Considering a very small repair.
yeah.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
know, I mean, this isn't to say that if the board chose, they couldn't go back to town meeting and ask for approval to spend money. I just, personally, not personally, professionally, I think it's low, but,
Seems kind of low to me.
What, the contingency?
Yeah.
Contingency? You think it's low?
yeah.
For a $2+ million budget, that's low.
But we've had, I mean,
0.01% or something.
the only, if you made it zero, let's just go to the extreme. Then when you have an electrical issue at the fire station, you need an engineer, you have to call a special town meeting. Okay, no harm, we have monies and savings and we can do that. And then 2 weeks later, you have the repair at the fire station. Okay, I'll call a special town, you know, there, at my home, I have a contingent, you know, we have a budget and we have a, you know, a fluff factor, a contingency, or whatever you wanna call it. And I know how quickly $10,000 could be spent, and I don't think we've been, or let me rephrase that, I think we have been good fiscal managers of the people's money.
Plus, there's an expense to call a special meeting as well, notification.
Yeah, I mean, it's,
Costs money.
it
right?
does,
Yeah.
not a lot, but,
But to your point earlier, they have to call one every month or whatever, plus you're gonna discourage the town folk when they're out there, why are we always coming? They'll get no one there, and then it's kinda useless to have a special town meeting.
the other thing that I won't say I've experienced here because we've had a contingency, but I've worked elsewhere prior, is if you start to take away the ability of a committee chair or department head coming in with an idea in the middle of the year that seems like a good expense, then you find people that make requests in their budget start to stick their own little contingencies in there.
Okay, I get it.
And then,
I get it. I get it.
and then they get hard to find.
I get it.
Don't take
I hate to say that.
contingency.
But the board can do with it what it will, but you know my position, I guess. Sorry.
Moving along.
Anybody else want to talk about contingency? All right, turning the page to page 13, code enforcement. Town of Lincolnville has a code enforcement officer, works part-time for us. In addition to his office hours here, he also provides staffing to the planning board when they have meetings. 1.6% increase proposed. Professional developments, training opportunities, memberships, publication supplies, equipment purchases. We don't run into an awful lot, but should he need something, should one of the things he already has breaks, we have $100 in there. And water monitoring is more like a testing of something that might be an issue for someone. Questions on code officer duties, responsibilities. And part of this, although we don't budget this way, we do charge for building permits and plumbing permits and sign permits and whatever else he's charged with doing. The code officer is also the plumbing inspector, the building inspector, the health officer, and am I forgetting something? No. I think that's it.
Who pays for the electrical inspector?
Person that applies for the electrical permit.
Pays
He gets all inspection fees and half of the other cost for the permit.
I'm turning the page to assessing, page 14. The town has an assessor's agent. It's a contracted position that assists the Board of Selectmen in the assessing duties or assigning value to real estate and personal property. He's not proposing a change in his contract amount for the coming year. We do provide remote access software to the assessor's agent, so he can access us remotely when he's not here.
Quick question, and probably not the right forum for this question, but, the code enforcement and the assessor are very important members of the town from a revenue perspective, I would think, and safety. Is there any succession plan, because they're getting up there in age, so have you thought about what's next?
I'm not gonna address the age question,
Well, no, I know
but
you-
for any of
I'm
us,
saying
yeah.
that, you know, people
Yeah.
like to retire and
Yep.
enjoy life at some moment.
Yep.
sometime.
The succession plan for the code officer will probably be created about the moment he gives us his resignation. No. To answer your question, no. The last time we hired a code officer, we created, it was a little bit fortuitous. There we go. The previous code officer had been a full-time position and had done some other duties as well. And it was just about the time that the building boom decided it was gonna crash and burn. And when we went to hire the new one, we couldn't find somebody that we were satisfied with qualifications for full-time. We reassigned some duties internally to others, increased some hours clerically, and hired a code officer part-time. Worked out. Assessing agent is gonna probably likely be at some point, either he chooses to retire or moves on or whatever, and will expire at the end of his contract. Fortunately, we know now that he's willing to sign a new contract with us that will start July 1, that will go for a year. If he either chose not to, we'd have about 6 months' notice. Or if the price was astronomically ridiculous, tripled or something like that, we'd have about 6 months' notice and we'd create the succession plan. We don't have one for a catastrophic event with either one of these fellas. We do have, fortunately, connections in both the assessing and the code world beyond Lincolnville. And there are others that we know would help us out in the pinch, just like we would their town.
I'm sure it's a unique talent to do these jobs.
Yes, certainly, both have to be certified to do what they do. And we would love to have somebody, because these are specialized jobs, for sure. Yep. Did I dance around that one well enough? Okay, now we're gonna jump way ahead, page 23, to the capital improvement program. As I started off earlier in the evening with the message, this is proposed to increase substantially from previous years. And I'm gonna run down the list and we can talk about any or all. Fire truck fund, we have 4 primary firefighting vehicles, and we keep those approximately 30 years, so we're replacing one every 7.5 years on average. Fire trucks are expensive, to say the least. We haven't had a change in the amount that we've been setting aside on the town's funds for a long time. I think when I actually came to town, we were setting aside $20,000 a year. We had one year went down to 10 and then back to 20. We are fortunate in the fact that the Lincolnville Community Foundation typically gifts to the town about half the cost of a new truck. When you look in the explanation, you'll see at the end of the calendar year, we had about $181,000 in that account. First thing is, we're got about $30,000 more expense coming out of that account for equipping the new truck that's on order. And then a substantial portion of that money that's in there is now gifts and donations that we're getting on an annual basis from the Community Foundation, versus in the past, we would just have town money in there, and then when it got time to buy a truck, they would gift us for whatever purpose, I presume for tax purposes or something. They're now giving us a gift, an annual gift, or have been, for the truck. So that's why the increase, because of the cost of the truck, basically. Harbor improvements, we have quite a harbor facility, proposing a substantial change in the monies we set aside, looking to replace the one of the 2 dinghy floats at the beach in the coming year. We have 4 down there. We are in the process of having the 3rd one built now, 3rd replacement. We're looking at this one for the dinghy float, and then probably the 5th one is a couple of years out. We put some new skids under it a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, and the top's still pretty good, but this one's time is close to the end. We have a pedestrian walkway that comes down from the ferry road that's different than the driving walkway. We've had conversations in the past about trying to get a little better spot for people to wait out of the weather and out of the wind and out of the way of people that are using the pier, and have budgeted for basically roofed waiting area over the existing walkway. And then the board and the harbor committee have been looking at ways to improve the boat launching ramp. The current ramp is, by almost all accounts, too flat. It's beach. Makes it very challenging to launch a boat from a trailer. And we had a conceptual study done that made a recommendation to basically elevate the ramp and then to increase the pitch down to make it easier to get on and off the trailers, and to stabilize the shoreline. So we budgeted monies to do the design of that and the environmental permitting, and while that's going on, we hope to be in the queue for some potential grant monies for construction.
It would also give a couple extra parking spaces too, in the design that we're working towards.
No new parking.
Come on.
Can I ask a question just about that over the covered area
There is parking.
of the walkway? Is that, is that on the ramp coming towards the building, or is that around the building where that structure will be? I'm just trying to picture it in my head.
You know, there's a, I don't know what it is, 5-foot wide wooden walkway that comes down from the,
Yeah.
that's where we're talking, covering that.
And maybe another silly question, but does the Maine State Ferry service have anything to do with the maintenance of that area? Or anything
No.
else? Interesting.
They do with the road,
Yeah.
the paved road and the
I was
whatever.
just curious because most all those people who would be waiting under there, are, using the service, so I just was curious.
No, it's also the folks that take like the Quicksilver out to Owlsboro and Peddling Yacht Yard, and the folks from Owlsboro have suggested that they thought that would be a marvelous idea, as has our harbor committee.
Yeah.
To try to keep people that would take the water taxi over here instead of over here where the stuff is going around.
I understand that. It just seemed,
It's all town-owned infrastructure.
Yeah.
Anything, once you get off the road, the paved section, onto anything wooden down there is ours.
Thanks.
Yeah.
A question with the new sewer plant being installed,
Mhm.
how's that gonna impact your plans for
sewer plant that the Lincolnville Sewer District is in the process of constructing slowly will be actually up behind the beach, the ferry parking lot, between the ferry parking lot and Route 1. And they have, my understanding is that the sewer district has acquired the Lincolnville Beach sanitary facility sewer plant that's there, which is right beside the boat launching ramp, between the boat launching ramp and McLaughlin's Lobster Shack. And the Board of Selectmen has reached out to the sewer district about the long-term plans for that site once the sewer district plant has been constructed. And they won't need all the area there. And the trustees have been nice enough to say, we got a lot on our plate right now, we recognize your interest and we're interested, but not now.
On the boat ramp,
Yep.
so I guess the people who are gonna design it, they're gonna be remembering sea levels rising.
Yep.
And NOAA, they have a website and you can slide maybe you've seen that. You can zoom on Lincolnville Beach and see,
Interestingly enough, we
Yeah.
were included in a comprehensive climate resiliency study
Oh, yeah.
done by a joint venture of the DMR, NOAA, Woods Engineering, Woods Hole Institute, and however many other terribly important, very brilliant groups.
yeah.
There are 10
10
Other-
sites in Penobscot Bay.
and, yeah,
And if you want to read that report, it's on the town's website under Harbor Committee.
Okay, so that'll be taken into account the lifetime of this new ramp.
Yeah, the nice thing, I hate to say the nice thing about sea level rise, but
It's gonna help the ramp.
yeah, it'll give you more water at low tide.
Yeah.
but it also, it can, the engineering work, or the structural engineer that did an assessment of our infrastructure, his assessment fully supports us moving forward with this plan, which
Yeah.
is timely.
But on that same line, John, we're looking at the stretch of shoreline right there is very unprotected, shall we say? And looking to, when we do the ramp, to stabilize the shoreline too, because otherwise, if water rises more frequently, that will be more exposed.
It's a win. Not to be the same.
All right, on to the next one. Road improvement, increased that fairly substantially too, doubled it, so I guess that's more than fairly substantially. We still have about 8 miles of gravel roads, and 26 plus miles now of paved road. We're looking to set aside money for enhancements to those roads to a better travel standard. One of the issues that we're looking at, we can talk a little bit more about this if you want to on Thursday with Road Commissioner Young, is on Townhouse Road. We have a major drainage structure that is in need of replacement. We may end up be looking at right now it's a large culvert. We may end up having to look at a natural bottom feature for fish passage, which adds to the cost of the structure. We'll also definitely be looking at a wider structure there so that we can have 2 lanes and some shoulders passing each other. Right now, I wouldn't say it was 2 lanes wide. Excuse me, we are looking to hopefully do the design and environmental permitting for that culvert project in the coming year with